Okay, looks like I'm recording, so I'm gonna go ahead and start this. This is the DESCHEDULER SIG scheduling subproject meeting for October 11th, 2022. This meeting is going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so please be nice. Follow the Kubernetes code of conduct, mindful of everything that you say. So looking at today's agenda, the first thing that we were going to talk about is this pull request here. Yes, Jan, do you want to talk a little bit about what the issue is and what the proposed solutions are for this? Because I was a little confused by this at first. And I think that just getting the scope fully out there would help.
Yeah, sure. So most of the strategies allow to specify a list of included and excluded namespaces. And in some cases or in OpenShift, we use this parameter to exclude namespaces which are protected. So we do not evict important pods which are not or which do not set the priority class as critical. And then node utilization strategies do not allow to set this parameter, which means that when we run either of the node utilization strategies, that there's a chance that the strategy evicts pods from the protected namespaces. And these days, the only way to protect those pods is to specify the node system critical or cluster system critical property classes. And the goal here is to extend the node utilization strategies to allow to set this parameter and to get it basically used right before to perform an exclusion or inclusion of namespaces right before eviction. And here the ask is, or the discussion in short is that we would like to use the pre-eviction filter extension point to perform like the right before eviction filtering, because the node utilization strategies need to see all the pods in a cluster, and only once all the pods are processed and the pods are marked for eviction, only at that point they can be either included or excluded from eviction. And in the past, we had a discussion about allowing to use the inclusion and exclusion of namespaces. And one of the disadvantages was that basically users might misuse these parameters. And when either of the strategies is run, then the scheduler would not properly evict pods to get the optimal distribution of pods. And what we are suggesting is to basically only for the, like in general, to allow the pre-eviction filter extension point be combined with the list of included and excluded namespaces. So more or less, that's what this PR is about.
Yeah, thanks for summarizing. So I think I was the one pushing back mostly on this, just because I guess from kind of a purist standpoint, or like what you said, making sure users don't misuse node utilization or are really just confused by the fact that it's not working the way that they expect. I'm kind of pushing back on the idea of allowing included or excluded namespaces for this, because it's meant to look at usage across the entire node. So a lot of users are already confused by the fact that node utilization doesn't look at the actual usage of the pods, but rather just the requests on them. Similarly, I think that this could be confusing if they are trying to run node utilization over, say, like a single namespace, and then being confused in whatever approach that we decide to take for handling that. Probably not seeing a lot of pods excluded. So that was the approach or the concern that I had with this, because I didn't know why we were all of a sudden trying to add these to node utilization. Like I guess it makes sense, and I don't mean to be like a huge blocker on something that clearly other people want to use. So it's not my place to tell people what they should or shouldn't be doing. But then I learned through the discussion, Jan, thank you for pointing this out, that this is actually more of a technical requirement. It sounds like for pre-eviction filter to be a plugin, which all of the strategies will have access to, node utilization needs to be able to use included or excluded namespaces. Is that correct? Or like some of the alternatives that we were talking about, is that could this plugin or any plugin, if someone decided to, be able to choose to not respect the include or exclude, or just like not pass those through? Is that, I guess that's kind of a long question.
Yeah, well, that was the summary at the end, that once we allow to basically customize the pre-eviction filter extension point, like in general for any strategy or plugin, then we will lose control of basically we will no longer be able to to say don't include or exclude namespaces, and the only thing that we can do is to warn users and make sure that when the default plugins and default extension points are used, we will do anything to protect or to make sure that the utilization strategies are functioning as close to the optimal goal as possible.
But even if we can't control how or which pre-eviction filter is going to be called in the plugin, if the user cannot use one of the fields, like the included field of the namespaces object, then it wouldn't matter, right? Because your point is like that we cannot control which, like how the behavior of the pre-eviction filter will be, because he can use the user can use any plugin for that.
Yeah,
and it could be a custom plugin. But if we don't allow the user to use the field itself, then it wouldn't matter, would it?
The field, you mean the
Included field specifically
yeah.
of the namespaces.
So today the included and excluded fields are used solely by the strategies, and they are outside of scope of any extension point. So as long as the we can guarantee that only the upstream or descheduler plugins and extension points are used, then we can make sure on the code level that the namespaces will not get incorrectly excluded or included. And that's the only protection we can offer.
Yeah.
But as I wrote, like in the comments, that once someone uses a custom plugin, they can implement their own inclusion, exclusion, and there's no way to stop them from like re-implementing the namespace inclusion, exclusion.
Right. That's kind of the point that, how I see this is like, we are, these are the upstream plugins, but they shouldn't be any different than any other plugin. If we want to make the decision for this one to not handle inclusion or exclusion, like any other developer should also have the option to use them or to not use them too. And just for that to be technically feasible. I do get now what you're saying about, currently the whole policy config is pretty flat in that the strategies have access to the top level settings like namespace inclusion, or no, those are passed through as strategy options. But we're taking those out and putting them into the different extension point that is the pre-eviction filter extension point initialized within the plugin, the strategy plugin itself, or is this something totally outside of the plugin that it doesn't have access to?
Outside.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any consideration to put pre-eviction filter inside the plugin? And we have this non-flat structure that's different from the DESCHEDULER framework, where Jan, when you were showing the diagram, I thought it was a really good explanation of that, that some of these plugins exist within other plugins. Is there any possibility to do that so that plugin developers can have this flexibility?
Like we might give some ability to, let's say, reconfigure extension points on the fly, but it will not like stop you from providing a malicious code or anything. So it would be, I guess, not functioning solution.
What about from the user's perspective, if they want to use namespace inclusion for, say, node utilization, but they don't want to use it for pod lifetime? Would that have to be an entirely separate profile, or can you initialize multiple like pre-eviction filter plugins with different settings and then say, I want to use this one for this strategy and this one for this strategy?
So that was the whole point of defining profiles, that basically you'll have a different configuration for each profile. So you can basically, it will be up to you to specify which eviction related plugins will be enabled in a profile. And then depending on which plugins you will enable in individual extension points, then you can create a combination of filters. And so that was the idea of using profiles as well. But like that's the closest way of reconfiguring the extension points to be specific to a plugin or a list of plugins, but it's on the profile level. And again, like the validation of those profiles is on top of plugins, not per plugin. So again, like the developers of plugins, they don't have full control of the validation for their plugin. So it's a bit unpractical.
Okay, so whether or not a plugins like Logic Code wants to use this inclusion or exclusion or any other pre-eviction filter option is out of the plugin's control, but it's in the user's control through their profile config.
Yes, exactly. And the stress is put on the good faith of users that they will properly configure their plugins. And if that will not be the case, if we might provide some, I don't know, predefined validation of the most common mistakes done when configuring policy.
Yeah. I mean, if we can at least say then, we don't recommend running this strategy with a namespace inclusion or exclusion filter, but people can still do it. And I guess if they see any issues with it, that'll be something that we can point to. It sounds like it would be not really technically feasible, at least right now, to be able to refactor this design into something that strategies can make a hard coded decision against.
Yeah, like I know that for a long time we tried to keep the bar high of not introducing any code changes which would allow users to misconfigure the strategies and like which would result in like a far from optimal distribution or evolution of pods, but with the scheduling plugins and the fact that we are losing control of the custom implementation of the extension points, then the only way we can do is to reduce the risk, but give faith to users that they will do the right thing.
Yep. Okay. I mean, that all makes sense to me. At least we have, there's an alternative for, I didn't know, once the pre-eviction filter technical part of it was brought up, I didn't know if this is something that all plugins were going to be, hard-coded and affected by. I still think that maybe in the future, like before maybe in another iteration of the framework, like before GA, maybe in beta or something, the option for plugins to choose how they handle pre-eviction filter options and interactive options from other extension points. I think that would be a helpful thing to have for developing future plugins. Right now, I don't think that there's any need for it. So maybe just an idea to keep in mind as a possible option in the future. Does that sound like something that could come up as a need at some point?
Do you mean some kind of recommendation or a list of decisions passed to the extension point, which would alter the default?
Yeah, I mean, like if I want to write a plugin that I say like no one should ever be able to use namespace exclusion on this. This needs to always work on every plugin, or I want to enforce that you are using namespace inclusion. I want to check that you have passed some sort of namespaces. My plugin code can check that or use that however I want, and modify the pre-eviction filter extension point, at least for this run.
Yeah, like I'm definitely for improving the sending the information from the plugins to extension points to alter the behavior.
Yep. Okay, cool. So then in that case, I think that we've had a pretty good discussion over this. We've explored a lot of the differences. I think that we can go forward with what the original plan was. I'm sorry for derailing this for so long, but I think part of the whole framework is letting more users and developers do whatever they want with it. So that's, we shouldn't be really nannying this anymore. So that's fine.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for pointing out like the bits that were not easy to understand, and like hopefully the discussion is transparent for everyone who would like to go through it one more time.
Yeah, so
I second that. The discussion was very nice. I think it's worth to have in every place that we could get. It makes sense because this is a big change, so we should be discussing everything.
Yeah, and we discussed it a lot, so I think that
yeah,
we've covered this decision thoroughly. So good discussion. Thanks for entertaining me, or not entertaining me, but appeasing me. But yeah, so we can go forward with that then. I didn't have anything else to say about it, so if, we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which Lucas, you've proposed a logo for the project.
Yeah, so I've been playing around with image generation, like AI image generation, and we generated this one and we liked it. And yeah, I don't know what you think of it. We just the prompt was like robot killing robot logo. And the idea is like that, like this robot is evicting pods, and yeah, it's a bit far from the Kubernetes visual identity, but I don't think it needs to be that close.
Did you
And
really
it's just
get
a
this out
proposal.
did you really get this out from AI?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, and you can. There's a link on the README. You can also generate a similar one with that seed on that website. It's the like already trained Stable Diffusion thing, but
Cool.
we use some other things to generate that other final version. Yeah, what do you guys think?
Can we, anything that's generated by that web page, can we like use it publicly, like without any license or like?
I assume so because you pay for it. So when you create a free account, you have some credits, and if you want, like, and then you spend them, and then if you want to continue using, you need to pay. But we generated this one on my infrastructure, so we set up everything up and generated this one.
Okay, I have one comment here. How does it scale? How does it shrink? What does it look like if you shrink it a lot?
I have no idea. That's a good question. It's
Oh, it's still pretty okay.
Shrink's
Yeah.
pretty. I don't think it'll need to be much larger than that.
No, it doesn't need to be larger, but what if it's used like, you know, in a really
As an
small
icon, right?
Yeah, it's still pretty good here.
Yeah.
Browser won't go any smaller, but I think it looks really cool. I love it. I love that it's AI generated. That's sweet too. So from my end, I think that the only things I would want to do is maybe have like a GitHub issue, or just publish this out more. Maybe this is enough publishing to say that this is the logo we're proposing. So to get like,
And also check the legality of it, right? Yeah.
then the next step, yeah, the copyright. Just making sure that we do have the copyright to use this. I could check with some of the like community people to see how they handle logos for their projects. Like I know if you look at like kubectl has its own logo, which looks nothing like any of the other Kubernetes. It's not on here, but it's a cuttlefish. So I think that this, if anything, being this hexagonal shape looks pretty cool. But yeah, if you could just, Lucas, if you want to verify that like you own the copyright to this, I guess, yeah, you said you ran this on your own infrastructure. You didn't actually use the website to generate this,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Then we should be good on the copyright, I'd say. So,
but it's using the model like
Okay.
from Stable Diffusion. So the model is trained on a lot of arts from other artists, but it's open. The model is open.
mhm.
So yeah, we need to check.
Yeah, we just check like whatever kind of, I'm sure that this Stable Diffusion is under some sort of open source license.
Yeah.
Sure that gives us the right to use it. Yeah, I think if we could open up, do you think like a GitHub issue in the repo is too much to talk about this, or just something that we could like check offline and then come back?
I don't know. I think we can open an issue.
Sure. Yeah, let's do it there. And then, because not everyone gets to come to the meetings, so just say this is the logo we're proposing. This is how we made it, and maybe we can get some of the community people. Like I think Bobby Tables would be good to ask about this.
Okay, cool, nice.
Sweet. Thanks for doing that. The logo was really cool.
No worries.
Is there any prize for creating a logo provided by the Kubernetes community?
Prize? I don't know. I think we will have to like to transfer the logo to CMCF or something like that. Then it's under their
Yeah, maybe they want
control.
yeah, you might end up contributing the copyright to it when like just the PR merges to head it to the repo.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So we'll go ahead with doing that and check out the copyright parts. I think that's really all that it is, and then like announce it to the people.
Cool.
So moving on, we have 15 minutes left. So we have this PR for adding restricted security policy to the E2E test bots. This was the change for OpenShift's E2Es to be able to run, right, Lucas?
Yes, it was initially contributed directly to the downstream version. Then I suggested to go upstream, and then I opened a PR, but then the contributor wanted to do some changes. I closed the PR and suggested that he would open the PR himself. But right now it's failing. But yeah, I think the discussion is not about the PR itself. It's more about this change making sense upstream.
Yeah, so I mentioned this, I'm not a security context expert for these things. This is the kind of change that shouldn't affect anyone else, right? So it's only
Yeah.
vendor specific in that, you have your OpenShift requires these to be set to be able to run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should not need to run as user. It should be like some default setting.
No, but they need run as non-root user to be true.
Oh, I'm sorry.
be able to-
Yeah, I misread as a run as a root, not as a
Yeah.
user.
So
Yeah.
this can run on OpenShift, yeah. But I think security context works a bit different when you compare like vanilla Kubernetes and OpenShift. And I assume, I didn't check, when you set run as non-root user as true, OpenShift already like sets the run as user some ID. And in Kubernetes it doesn't, and I think that's what's missing here, that the person needs to add. But then it would work on both. It's just like, I think the main drawback is more things on the end-to-end test, so it's more verbose and more things to look at. I don't know, more things that could break a test, and it's not actually what we're testing, but that's it, I think.
What do you mean more things could break with this? Would it be just, like if security context doesn't get set in a new test that we add, it would break on OpenShift, or is there something that this could cause upstream our repos tests to break with?
Yeah, I don't know if we change the image or something like that in the test. I can't think of something else. I think usually it won't break anything. Yeah, should just work.
Okay, maybe we need to, as long as this is something that is in vanilla Kubernetes, doesn't have any effect on any upstream stuff. I worry about adding vendor specific changes that only benefit the vendor or like downstream tests. This is kind of thing that should probably be a patch in your OpenShift or in the OpenShift fork of the descheduler to make your tests run. I know that there's a bunch of patches already for building and testing in the OpenShift fork. I just get that these would be tougher to maintain with more.
Yeah, this one, yeah, in the code is a bit more. Yeah.
Like OpenShift is running the upstream Kubernetes E2Es, which already have some of these security contexts set, which are like vendor independent. So I don't think we would need a solution specific for OpenShift as long as we find something that's still vendor independent. So it should be enough just to take a look inside the E2Es and see which bits are missing and just apply those.
Yeah, if the upstream E2Es are already running this, then it makes it sound like there's some outside benefit to security context constraints that I don't know about. That would be good for us. So if there's some measurable benefit to our tests too, then yeah, this is an easy change to make. So I just don't know what that is. So I guess next steps for this are to see like what the upstream E2E tests are using this for, why they're using it, and try to justify this for our tests too. And then I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I agree. And we can continue the discussion in detail on the PR.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's do things. Options for how to run profiles. Lucas, I don't think I've seen this.
Yeah, it was a comment by Jan. Like right now, I'm iterated over the profiles, and then I'm iterated over the plugins, right? And then like I go over the plugins that are descheduled plugins, and then over the plugins that are balanced plugins. And then we have these options, and yeah, would like to discuss what you think would be best. The first option is to go through the profiles and extension points, and it's what I'm doing. And then the other option is to have those other extension points, like run all the schedule, run all balance, and work with that.
Yeah, so the original design, and there's a diagram actually showing that what you're doing right now is the approach that is suggested in the design proposal. But the thing is that if you alternate between running the deschedule extension points, then the balance, then deschedule, and then balance again, and so on, you might actually undo the work that was done by the previous profiles. And the overall idea was that it's better to run all the deschedule eviction points first, because you will remove all the pods which are for which you don't need to like assume the overall state of distribution of pods in the cluster, and only then run the balance extension points. So you will actually get closer to the spreading all the pods evenly among nodes, or if you decide for the Bing backing. And like
So,
that's just the, yeah.
So the second option is what you think would be ideal anyways, right?
I think it might be closer to the optimal distribution of pods after all the evictions were performed, but it's just a theory, just a hunch.
So just to try to summarize, the idea here is either run through, like you have a profile, a bunch of extension points in it, run through those, then run through the next profile, a bunch of extension points in it, versus doing all the extension points from each profile at a time.
Yeah, the second approach is running all the schedule extension points through all profiles, and only then run the balance extension points again through all the profiles, but only after all the deschedule extension points were run.
So that seems weird to me, because I thought that there were like extension points before the deschedule extension point that will have to be run like in order or within that profile before you can get to deschedule. And like that deschedule extension point could have settings that are modified by that profile's like pre-eviction filter extension point, right?
It will have that, yeah, as well. Inside the plugin, it will call like filter, pre-eviction filter, and deschedule. But we label like a plugin as a deschedule plugin, or another plugin as a balance plugin. So node utilization is a balance plugin, but like remove failed pods is a deschedule plugin.
Oh, okay. Saying run all the deschedule ones before the balance ones, or like
Exactly.
Okay, I think I was coming from, or just not understanding this problem coming into it. Yeah, I kind of want a little bit more time to think about that offline.
Okay.
Since I'm like just now it sounds like an interesting problem to me. Yeah, I have to catch up on this thread to be able to comment on it. So I don't have much to say.
Yeah, I also have a hunch that the second option is better, but I also would need to maybe run a few examples to check what will happen. Yeah. Whiteboarding.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think that there's some more that could be said about this. I'm just looking at the time right now, and I'm wondering if we want to get to the last item on the agenda.
We can move it to the backlog.
Okay.
I thought it would maybe run over. Yeah.
Yep. Keep going. Yeah. So the idea of running all the deschedule endpoints first is really just kind of like an optimization thing. Could this be an option for users? Say, whether you want to run them all in order throughout each profile versus running all deschedule endpoints first.
Yeah, like it might be an option. I just wonder how much confusion it will create, but
Yeah, I'd like to, if we could have some use cases or like examples of when, like one use case for why you'd want to run all of the deschedule endpoints first. It might be a little easier to visualize the benefit from this. I kind of get it, but if we could have like an example of just a simple thing to say, like, if we ran deschedule then balance, just something to walk through it a bit might help me understand.
Yeah, I'll try to provide that. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, just to we have just about a minute left, but just to mention, like this PR is mostly about the conversion, and like we can have any additional discussion. What's the preferable way of running the extension points in another PR?
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can open another issue. Okay.
Yeah, if this is blocking the conversion itself, like this could be broken out so that we just get the conversion, and then if we want to refactor how those plugins are run or just take the plugin running out of this PR, then that's fine.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So we are at 1 minute left. I think that we'll just move this to the next meeting. What it is. Oh yeah, the GitHub Actions test. Okay, so yeah, this can probably wait until the next meeting, right?
Yep.
Great. Well, that is all. We're at time. I don't know if anyone has anything else to say, but if not, then I will stop the recording and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mike.